Here we go.
Alright, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about Warlock tanking again, and we're going to be comparing the benefits of Affliction versus the benefits of Demonology, because I've been getting a lot of comments on my Warlock tanking guide where people just can't believe that I'm giving up instant corruption to go full into the Demonology tree. So today we're going to take a look at the benefits and drawbacks of each spec. So if you like this kind of content, be sure to leave me a like, comment, subscribe, all that fun jazz, and we're just going to jump right on into it. So I think we should start out by talking about Affliction tanking and the benefits you get from that. So your typical Affliction tanking build, if you're going to go into that, is 5 points in improved corruption, because all you guys seem to be really attached to the instant corruption. Then we'd put 5 points in improved drain life, 1 point in suppression, and that leaves us 1 point or 5 points to put into demonic embrace. Okay, so let's talk about the instant corruption first. Okay, so I'm gonna go cast corruption on this target. Literally get nothing out of the instant corruption it doesn't do anything to improve your spell power, increase your threat, anything like that. So over the course of the full corruption, I got 195 threat, right? So that's fine. We'll come back to that. So 195 threat on corruption. We'll see how much one regular non-boosted Searing Pain does. 192. Instant cast, immediate threat on Searing Pain. So your corruption cast over its entire duration of 15 seconds is giving you the same amount of threat as one instant cast Searing Pain that gives you the threat immediately. So what that means is corruption really isn't worth using while you're tanking, unless you're taunt swapping with another tank and they have threat. Then you can put corruption, immolate, curse of agony. You're not worried about climbing threat at that moment, so you can go for the damage and threat over time. But that's not the biggest problem I have with the instant corruption. Here's the thing: if you're using Incinerate Rune, which I was having trouble with threat, so I went to the Incinerate Rune to help me with threat, right? Okay, so here's my biggest problem with corruption. If you're going to be putting a dot on a target, especially when you're pulling, right? You're better off casting Immolate, and then I'm going to put, you cast Incinerate to buff your fire damage by 25%, and then I'm going to put Immolate on this target. And that's all the threat I'm going to have on this target, is just one Immolate boosted by Incinerate. And we'll see how much threat you're going to get out of that. 361 threat. Just from Immolate boosted by Incinerate. So that's going to give you a little more threat. let me go ahead and kill these guys. Then we want to look at the fact that we can boost our searing pain with incinerate as well. So we were talking about corruption giving the same amount of threat as one unboosted searing pain. So we're going to boost our searing pain and hit it one time. That's 236 threats. So that's now more than equal to what you're getting from your corruption. So, like I say, unless you are and being an off tank at that moment, I really don't feel like there's a lot of value to using corruption while tanking. Your whole thing with tanking is keeping threat. So if you're taking time to, if you're taking a global cooldown to put corruption on the target, you're not gaining any more threat than if you used that global cooldown on searing pain. So there's no benefit to using corruption over spamming searing pain. And there is a benefit to spamming searing pain if you pull with incinerate. So that's one of my biggest problems with corruption while you're tanking. There's I can't think of any good reason to use it other than if you're off tanking. So your 5 points in instant corruption, that's wasted. I see no point in that. You could put the 5 points in suppression, which is going to help your taunt, your drain life, and your curse of agony. And I can see a little bit of benefit in that, because having drain life resisted during a fight is a real problem. But that's fine. So next up we're going to talk about the improved drain life. Okay. So let's take a look at it. Let's break down the math on this and see exactly how much good it does. So 17 health every second for 15 seconds. So I'm going to assume that the tooltip isn't changed by my master channel. Hold on, let's change this real quick just to make sure. I don't think the tooltip changes. Right, so it's still 17. Alright, so we put our master channel room back on. So 17 per second times 15 seconds. So your drain life is healing you for 255. But then we're going to boost it by 50%. So 255 plus 127. So now we're at 382. Now, if you have all 5 points in this talent, you get 10% more. So we're going to multiply this by 10%. So 382 plus 38. So you now have 420 health you are getting from your drain life. That's 5 points to increase your drain life by 38 every 15 seconds. That's not a lot. That's 2 ticks of your drain life. So that's 5 points you've put into that for 38 health every 15 seconds. I can't see that being that important. 38 health is not going to make that much of a difference. Then let's go ahead and consider the fact that if you're affliction tanking, you're probably using an imp for the stam buff. Okay, that's fine. I have 1184 health. What does the imp give? Is it 10%? I think it's 10%. 1184 to 1294. So 90 extra health that I'm getting from having the imp out. And true, that does affect all party members, so you get a little more benefit out of that. Okay, so that's the benefit you get out of the imp. That everybody is so attached to and thinks every Warlock tank should run. I really don't like that. I really don't like them saying that. So now let's talk about Demonology. So we're not even going to count Demonic Embrace because most people running Affliction talents for tanking are also running Demonic Embrace. So we're not even going to count this. Improved Health Stone increases the amount of health restored by your Health Stone by 20%. That's going to change it from 250 health to 300. So you're getting 50 more health on your Health Stone whenever you need it. It's not a huge advantage, but might as well count it, right? Then we're going to talk about improved Void Walker. This increases the effectiveness of your Void Walker's Torment, Consume Shadow, Sacrifice, and Suffering spells. Really, the main benefit from these three talents is that you're getting more of a shield when you sacrifice your Void Walker. So I think it's like a little over 100 damage more that you get on this shield when you sacrifice the Void Walker. So that's over half my health right there. Well, unbuffed, but that's over half my health right there when I sacrifice a Void Walker. Then we're going to talk about the fact that one of your biggest weaknesses as a Warlock tank is AoE tanking. Really, I mean, Shadow Cleave is fine. It helps, but it doesn't have the improved threat. Like if you look at Searing Pain, it specifically says causes a high amount of threat. Shadow Cleave is not getting that. You're getting right at, well, for me, with my spell power, this is doing about 50 damage to each target and giving me 50 threat for each target. So yeah, that's not going to be more threat than any kind of AoE spell hitting the same target. Yours is not going to do more threat than anybody else's. So really, when it comes to AoE tanking, you're just tab targeting and spamming Searing Pain for threat. And that's really the best you can do. So the whole problem I have, that's not that big of a problem, like especially in dungeons, because for one thing, if I'm going to try and tank multiple targets in a dungeon, I incinerate one target, send the Void Walker after another, and that's not that big of a deal. Like, your Void Walker can tank the off target, right? So we're going to go ahead and kill this guy, and the benefit of the Void Walker tanking it now is it keeps it off of your DPS, and once you're ready for it, you taunt, and you immediately jump to your Void Walker's level of threat on that target. So the whole benefit I see out of the Void Walker is you have an off tank for yourself. And you can say, oh, that's not useful in raids, but it actually is. Because, you know, I'm standing here unbuffed. My Void Walker has 2200 health. In raids, I've seen my Void Walker with 3600 health easily from raid buffs. So he can tank a boss for a while if you really want him to. You could send him in first and let him eat a few hits just for fun if you wanted to. But he can definitely hold at least one target, sometimes multiple targets when you have Suffering up, which is on a 2-minute cooldown. So that's kind of hard to rely on, but at least one target your Voidwalker can hold for you while everyone focuses another target. And the best part about that is, since you are a ranged tank on the Warlock, you can send your Voidwalker in first. He's going to tank that target, and you pull another one. So the one that you're pulling will come to you. The Voidwalker will hold the other target where it's at. So it's not even going to be in the group with you, causing you to lose threat on it. So what I'm trying to say is, the improved Voidwalker is actually a pretty decent talent for tanking. Not just for the sacrifice, but for giving him more threat generation and health, and letting him be a better off tank for you. Okay, so we've talked about that. Fell Stam, same thing. It's going to help your Voidwalker with more health. I'm running 4 out of 5. But here's the big one, the two big ones for Demonology spec that I can't stress enough how much I like these talents. First off, Master Summoner. At all times, I have 2 seconds reduced cast time on my Voidwalker or any of my pets. So 8-second cast on summoning the Voidwalker instead of 10. That's rarely useful, but if you're on a fight where you are tank swapping, whenever you know you're about to have a swap coming up, you can sacrifice your Voidwalker and go without a pet for a few seconds. Wait until the other tank taunts the boss off of you, and in 8 seconds you can have another pet out, another Voidwalker out. Meaning that increases the amount of times you can use sacrifice during one raid boss fight. But that's not even the big point that I have on this. Fell Domination means that when I sacrifice my Voidwalker and pop Fell Domination, the next summon for my Voidwalker is 2.5 seconds. So your shield will hold for 667 damage. That gives you more than enough time to sacrifice your Voidwalker and get him right back out in the middle of the fight. Why did I not? Okay, I messed that up. But 2.5 seconds cast time to get a Voidwalker back out means that before your sacrifice shield is gone, you have another Voidwalker out. So if you're in a real oh shit situation, you can save yourself from 1200 damage in the middle of the raid boss fight with Fell Domination. Now granted, you can only do that once, and you can't really summon your Voidwalker back out during the fight at that point unless you have another tank that's taking aggro from you. But yeah, 1200 damage. That's my entire health pool, giving healers time to catch up in boss fights where there's a lot of damage coming out in a particular phase. And I'm talking about Kelrus here. So when you get Kelrus to, what is it, 40%, 30% whenever he switches to the second phase, that's a high damage phase for that fight. That means that I can block 1200 damage and give the healers a little bit of a break. That's not even counting the shadow protection potion if you're using it for that fight, and that's not counting your health stone that you can pop during this time. It's not counting a health potion that you can pop during this time. Like, there are a lot of tools that the Warlock has for mitigating damage, but you have to spec into it, you have to get used to it, and you have to know what you're doing with it. Now, granted, that is a lot more effort than, oh, I'm just going to pull out my imp and I'm going to have my instant corruption and my improved drain life. I mean, yes, that is more effort required to play Demonology than Affliction. But the differences are, I mean, huge. So, here I've got it broken down for you, the different advantages for each one, right? Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot one of the advantages for Affliction. And that is, if you have the instant corruption and the drain life, that works pretty good as a PvP or a DPS spec. The Demonology one is not as good for DPS. That's a fair point. You could Affliction, you could swap back and forth between DPS and tanking a little easier. But when it comes to, but since we're talking about the specs in a tanking perspective, I don't really count that. We're just talking about tanking right now, and why I lean more towards the Demonology tree and why it's more effective for tanking for me. Because you're not going to be able to pull out a second pet during a raid boss fight with Affliction. You're not going to be able to block as much incoming damage with your Void Walker's sacrifice if you're Affliction. I think the advantages are way more beneficial on Demonology than Affliction, though. And I see so many Warlock tanks running Affliction, and it drives me just crazy. It may be easier, you know. It may be easier for you to play Affliction while you're tanking, but you're not doing your group any favors at all. You're not doing Warlock tanks in general any favors when healers think you're squishy because of the way you're playing. So that's all I've got for you. Leave me a like, comment, subscribe. Please feel free to argue with me in the comments again about how great the instant corruption is. But, I mean, here's my answer for you, this whole video. So that's all I've got for you on this one, and I'll see you in the next one.